Good afternoon, radio ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start our Central Committee meeting for today. So I want to welcome all the committee members, those in the public galleries, and those following us via radio and other media channels. The Central Committee meeting is convened in accordance with Article 8, Rules of Order of the Island Council Committee Ordinance. At this time, members can give any announcements. Are there any announcements from the members for the committee? All right, no announcements other than Council Lady Spanakati is absent with notice for this Central Committee meeting. Agenda point number 3, setting of the agenda. The agenda, as previously announced, says 1, opening; 2, announcements; 3, setting of the agenda; 4, island ordinance on extraordinary powers of the island governor; number 5, announcements, executive council; and number 6, closing. And the committee members find themselves in this agenda as read, or are there suggestions for adjustments to the agenda? All right, no change to the agenda, so we adopt the agenda as read. And we go to agenda point number 4, island ordinance on extraordinary powers of the island governor. Today we convene this extra Central Committee meeting to handle this urgent agenda point. In our last meeting on Thursday, July 3rd, the committee advised the governor to make some changes to the ordinance on the extraordinary powers for the governor. In today's meeting, we will hear the update from Governor Ms. Francis about the changes that were made with regard to this ordinance. So at this time, I invite Ms. Francis, Island Governor, to give an update based on the requests from the committee from last Thursday's meeting. Madam Governor.
Honorable Chair, esteemed members of the Central Committee, colleagues and residents listening, I thank you for the opportunity to present the streamlined Eilands Verordening Camera Bewaking Sint Eustatius. After constructive dialogue with the Island Council Central Committee last Thursday, the proposal now focuses on a single instrument, camera surveillance on clearly designated public areas enacted under Article 1.56 of the Wet Openbare Lichamen Sint Eustatius, Bonaire Sint Eustatius, and Saba, the Walbes. This ordinance, as I mentioned last Thursday, does not conjure new authority out of thin air. It simply anchors in a local bylaw a power that national legislation already provides, ensuring that its exercise on Statia is transparent, proportionate, and subject to democratic control. Under the Walbes, the island governor may only exercise such a power when the Island Council has first authorized it by ordinance. And that legal gap is precisely what the text closes, the text that is now before the Central Committee. In the adjusted version of the ordinance, which is now titled Island Ordinance Camera Supervision Sint Eustatius, Eilands Verordening Camera Bewaking Sint Eustatius, Article 1 settles the definitions. It confirms that the gezaghebber, the island governor, refers to the island governor that an open bar plats in is any location habitually open to the public, and that refers to the vet, point to the Walbes. Article 2 then confers a single, carefully circumscribed competence. The governor may authorize the use of cameras for a fixed period to safeguard public order and public safety in public spaces. For Statia, the ordinance lists where the power may be applied, including key junctions such as the intersection of Dr. Korthalsweg with Mansionweg, public parking areas like the one opposite of the airport on Cornelius van Zanten Road, the harbor front on Oranje Bay, and various legal and illegal waste dump sites such as Lynch, Fair Play, and White Wall. Mobile units are allowed in addition to fixed installations, so coverage can move if trouble moves, reflecting lessons learned elsewhere. The ordinance embeds 4 principal safeguards. First, duration. Every camera order must state its own start and end date. Equipment is removed or switched off when the term expires. The second is subsidiary and proportionality. The governor must record why lighter means would not suffice. Third, Ken Bad height, prominent signage must inform the public when they enter a monitored zone, as also is the case currently. Persons who may have camera surveillance on their private homes, you would see around the island that it is required by law that persons who have a camera on their private homes would say this house is surveilled by camera, something similar to that. Fourth, accountability. The governor's decision qualifies as a public law act that affected parties can contest through objection and appeal. Now, to illustrate how the ordinance will work in practice, consider the forthcoming Carnival 2025 public. Cameras will operate from the 17th to the 28th of July, but live monitoring will occur only during the peak days, the 26th, 27th, and 28th. Recordings will be stored securely for no longer than 4 weeks unless they are needed for a criminal investigation, and only 2 vetted members of the KPCN intelligence unit will have real-time access. And again, as I stated last Thursday, some may worry that surveillance will become permanent or deter attendance at cultural events. I must say that after a decade of cameras at the youth center, because the youth center has cameras installed for the last 10 years, participation in events remains strong while visitors report a heightened sense of safety. Others may be concerned about the cost, and as I mentioned last Thursday, in all transparency, the Carnival pilot will not exceed $15,000 US, and it is fully covered by the 2025 public order budget. It would have been a far more significant investment had we not have received the good support from KPCN in the types of cameras that are being utilized. And transparency completes the scheme. As mentioned, each camera decision will be published online, and the Governor's Cabinet will submit an annual public order letter detailing how often and where cameras were deployed and with what results. The Carnival pilot will be evaluated publicly in the 4th quarter of 2025 so that the Council can adjust the ordinance if necessary. So, members of the Central Committee, the single instrument ordinance is not about expanding executive power. It is about giving St. Eustatius a modern, precisely targeted tool to deter crime, to reassure law-abiding citizens, and to let festivals and events flourish in safety while respecting privacy and the rule of law. It also provides the Executive Council with an important instrument to also enforce on the illegal dumping activities that have heightened around our island, mainly due to the ongoing increase in construction, but also, unfortunately, the increase in delinquency of certain residents who are illegally dumping household waste and heavy household waste, in particular old air conditioning units, old mattresses, old refrigerators throughout our island in the areas that are mentioned in the ordinance in particular. So at this time, I would like to inform the Central Committee that I'm supported here today by the Inspector of Police, Chief of Basic Police Care, St. Eustatius, our legal advisor in the executive branch of government, as well as Rex trainee who has a legal background. I welcome your questions and look forward to a constructive dialogue.
All right, thank you, Madam Governor. So do you have any further presentation by your support staff or not at this point?
If there is any particular area of interest for further elaboration, I can also ask the Inspector of Police to address the gathering. We are all aware of, I believe it was in February of this year, the Council received the annual reports from police regarding statistics for 2024. Each year, the police brings to our attention their figures, and in the final year, 2024, the final report, the second report for that year, was highlighted that domestic violence and traffic violations, in particular with the scooter situation on our island, are the two main points of concern of police, and maybe it would be useful at this time if we can have the input of the basic police care to highlight why the importance. We also see in certain roads here on our island, certain neighborhoods, there is what you call the overlast, a severe burden of the noise that is coming out of these type of, and also the driving on, racing on some of our streets, especially now that we have new, clean, straight roads. We see the disturbance to the neighborhood, which is also in violation of the APV. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, it would be useful if Inspector of Police, Chief Basic Police Care, St. Eustatius can elucidate further if the Central Committee so wishes.
Okay, you say if we so wishes. Are you going to make a presentation now, Mr. Hodge? Are you going to say something now? Okay, then you can make use of the podium.
Good afternoon. Thank you. To elaborate a bit further on the crime situation on the island, to begin with a recent report where information was obtained via our intelligence department that indicated some serious concerns for public safety during the last event, during the last weekend. Fortunately, there were no incidents, but there was some very concerning reports that that had us within the police, our attention. It had a lot to do with what's transpiring also on St. Martin in recent times. That is one recent situation. Aside from that, over the years, especially as it pertains to events, we have had an increase in firearm-related incidents. Again, I think we were blessed that it never escalated into anyone getting hurt. by firearms, but that is another concern of ours as it pertains to public order and safety. In addition to that, individuals who have made it a habit of disturbing public events that sometimes result in, given our capacity, not being able to adequately stop or control it at the moment, and sometimes we would have to resort to having to stop an event. One such example was some years ago when one of the parades for the carnival was discontinued because of imminent threats of violence from certain groups within our community. So that is some of the reasoning behind the need to use this as a tool for as a preventive, because what we have seen usually when there's these types of measures being taken, it serves as a preventive measure oftentimes during events. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hodge. Okay, then we will continue with the deliberations by committee members. We will apply the usual speaking time, 20 and 10 minutes, unless there is a proposal. Otherwise, no. Then I call on the first speaker, Mr. Councilman Derek Simmons, followed by Councilman Van Putten and Council Lady Lopes Banner. Mr. Simmons, first term.
I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Councilman Van Putten.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee and those who are following us by the various social platform, I want to say good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the governor and her team for so willingly complying with the proposal of the Island Council, the Central Committee, and coming with a more simplified version of this ordinance, which will deal specifically with the issues of the camera. I received the document earlier today, and so in my leisure time, I had the opportunity to go through the document, and I think that in general, I don't see any reason that would prevent me as an elected representative to support this. Like I said, during my most recent working visit to the Netherlands, I had in-depth discussion with one of the stakeholders involved, and I had already given my commitment that I would support the issue of the cameras. I'm happy that in the presentation last week, and again today, that the governor indicated that these cameras will be of a temporary nature. I believe, yes, indeed, that in terms of development, an island development, that a lot transpired here on the island, more than we would believe. However, I want to caution that while I fully support this piece of legislation, I want to caution that this legislation don't be used to intimidate and to unnecessarily target individuals. I see some of the areas that is being mentioned, and in my own constituency, I know that at the lower part of the Kathalsweg, that is one of the areas where there's a big convergence. I call it the People's Parliament, basically because from time to time I myself would join them. and they get the opportunity to be able to quiz me and to talk with me on a number of issues. But likewise, I know in other parts of the community people come together. And I recognize that at times things may get out of hand, it can get out of hand. But while I'm calling on government, and in this particular situation, the governor, who's charged with public order and safety, at the same time, I want to use this bully pulpit and make an appeal to our people, especially the young people in this country, to adhere to the laws. I think that whatever's being done is to ensure that we safeguard and protect all the people, all the residents of this island, including the very young people themselves. I was asked after the meeting that if I would support this country in becoming the police state, and I said, hell no, that will never happen on my watch. Under no condition, as long as I'm here, I am not going to support the police state, because like I said, that I am very, very careful when given these type of authorities and to individuals or even institutions. Because I use, for instance, the example of the unconventional overtake of my government in 2018. And I think having these type of situations, one never know that when and how it could be used and applied. So I'm very careful in moving forward. But I want to ask our people to become more responsible as citizens and residents of this island, because I think that you too, as citizens, residents, have a responsibility to ensure that our people are protected, that the island is safe, but especially for our young people, our children, our women, our senior citizens. So I would hope, and even after now, wherever and however I can, continue to implore, advise, and encourage our people, to be cooperative, then definitely I am prepared to do so. The police commissioner made some other general remarks with regards to the public safety. I think it has to do particularly, that was mentioned, domestic violence. I know that it takes place maybe too often in the community. I don't really want to go into the specifics of it, because I know sometimes they can be very sensitive, but I will deal with the issue of the helmets. I was in the Netherlands on official business when we got a tragic accident that took the lives of two promising young men in this country. And immediately on my return, I tried to get back, actually, when I learned of it, but it didn't work out. But immediately when I returned, I drove directly to the site, to be able to pause for a moment where this would be a mark that will remain in the country for decades or maybe centuries to come. And I think shortly after that development, I really thought that it would have been a deterrent to young people who are actually making use of these bicycles or these motorbikes. But sadly, I must confess that it got worse. I usually spend the Sunday afternoon sometime with some of the constituents at Camp David. And very, very often, you could hardly hear your ears because of these bikes going to and fro. I'm a late night person, do a lot of reading and checking emails and the stuff, very late at night, watching television news and so forth. And sometime all 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm hearing them on the avenue, and they're up and down, day and night, but especially during the hours of the night. And sometimes if I'm sitting on the veranda, I would even see some of them without lights. And when you check, there's no helmet on their heads. And here again, I believe that the police department need to act. If it is my grandson, and I don't have a grandson that big that could ride motorbike at this point in time, but if it's my grandson, because technically all the children in this country, if they're not children, they're grandchildren, because I see myself as one of the senior public officials in this country. But I believe the police must act and act severely to ensure that the tide be stemmed. I was visiting a program at the Seventh Adventist Church some weeks back, and one of the persons that was speaking at that occasion made mention, Chairman, that a similar situation could have occurred because a young man ended up on the other side of the wall while the motorbike remained in the road. So it was providence that we did not have a situation, and it was in close proximity to where the previous accident would have taken place. And so I believe a zero tolerance should be put in place. I think they could buy helmets because I'm seeing young people with expensive bikes, expensive cars, all kind of gadgets that I am not able to purchase, but I'm seeing them with them. So I believe, obviously, Chairman, that they should be able to purchase a helmet if they are mandatory. So the specific question, is there a law or a policy? And if so, why is it that it is not being implemented by the police authority? Also mention was made of an incident over the weekend. I'm left that you said it didn't get out of hand, but something did transpired, and it sounded like you're saying that you all was on edge, that things did not escalate. I don't go to those type of gathering, but I welcome them because I think that our people must have an opportunity to be able to enjoy themselves. I look at the Facebook from time to time, and I did see, and it was rather colorful. I was even surprised seeing some of the patrons that was present at that event. But the other question is, I noticed in recent time that there are requirements for, beside the police, that they also require that you have security guards in place. How is that being carried out? Is there any form of consultation? Because I could pick up anybody from the street, and I'm not saying that is the case, but people might be tempted to do it in order to save money, save costs. So if security provisions are being made, is this done in consultation with the police department to ensure that whoever is carrying out the security, that it would meet with the standard and requirement that is put in place? Chairman, also, I heard mention being made of the firearms that come into the community. And during the past week, I raised the alarm bell with regards to the activities of the customs and the immigration authorities, because it's no joke, it's a reality that indeed that there's a lot of firearms. I make a lot of joke with young people over the years, and some of them will tell me what they will do. And I would say, oh, you're just talking, and whether you believe it or not, sometimes they would show you. And indeed, they have it in their bag, and you never know when. Because what is happening here, I just saw in Bonaire over the Sunday weekend, that again, there was an unfortunate 2 shootings that took place there on Bonaire. And I believe that this island is in development. It's no doubt about that. And so I say with development, we get the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so I would like to hear from the governor and the police commissioner as to specific policies, recommendations, strategies that they may have in place in order to ensure that these firearms be taken off the street. I know there's a sort of grace periods are given sometime in some countries. You know, you have a day where you ask people to come and drop off. You know, you drop it off, there would be no punishment or investigation of the like. Is this something that your office, Madam Governor, along with the police commissioner, is willing to do? I spoke of the concerns with regards to the lack of control at the ports, especially the harbor, where the mechanic comes and go. What is being done in order to alert the authorities in The Hague or in Bonaire with regards to that situation, because it is disgusting for both the situation with the immigration and the customs. And I know that whenever we go to Holland, like we speak about the healthcare, the whole issue of the customs and the attitude and behavior of the immigration department, that is also being brought into scrutiny. Where the active participation and the visibility, I know that there are issues, I'm told, where there's not enough police on the island. But we still need to see more of the police in the different constituencies, the different districts, parishes on the island. And what does the Office of the Governor, the Police Commissioner, what strategies you have in place long term? Because right now, for instance, Carnival is here. And already, whenever I come into the town, I'm seeing a lot of people. Usually I walk up to the people and I say, who are you? Where you come from? What's your name? What are you doing here? I do that all the time. But there are more and more people. And I'm sure now in the coming days, with the carnival activities, you're going to have much more of that. So what is being done in order to be able to address that situation? Then the final statement, Mr. Chairman, is the granting the policy for granting of permits for events. I just got a call over the weekend where one patron is complaining that whenever they request, you know, to get permit in order to keep an event at their place, that nothing is being said. They go on the contract. Well, I said, if you didn't get a permit, then don't contract anybody. You have to have a permit before you could contract a band or a DJ. But the person at some point feel that they may be targeted. And I'm hoping to talk with the governor of the record on this, because I believe that everybody must have a fair chance once they are complying with the laws and safety measures of the land. But I would like to know what policy is in place in order to be able to grant permits for public events, be it dances, DJ, whatever they have, because a lot of things is taking place both in the day as well as the night. So I hope that with these comments and questions, concerns, that I will be able, not for me generally, but for the public, that there would be more clarity so that the community would get an idea. And like I said, Mr. Chairman, I am prepared to defend. I could not find myself supporting the ordinance as it was presented, because I'm not going to support the police state. I said that before and I maintain that. But I have no problem with the limited period of the surveillance camera. I also asked in the meeting before as to the participation of locals, because I understood that there was a group of local young men who would have spoken both to the police commissioner and the governor. I think they have something in that realm as well. And so I would like to know if there's any room. I wanted to find out who would monitor them. There are also, I saw where mentioned that the information acquired from these cameras only in the case if there was a criminal activity, that it would be kept longer. I don't distrust the police, not the people involved, but I wish that the Island Council, because I assume there's a committee that will be looking at these cameras, but I would want to have the guarantee that once they are finished with, that they would be able to be destroyed. And I would want to suggest that if somebody from the office of the General Secretary of the Island Council, in this case the Khalifiya, even in the form of observer, could be present to ensure that once the time period comes where you said that the information would be gotten rid of, that we as an island council who represents the people could have an idea. The Griffier, in this case, as you call it, in that she worked with the paquettes of the prosecutor office in the past. So I think she's a very confidential individual and fully knows and aware of the legal chain. So I would like to suggest, Mr. Chairman, that when you reach that point, that the information will be discarded as was taken up on the cameras. I would like to suggest that she be added as an observer to confirm and set the hearts and the concern of members of this august body, which is the Island Council, at ease. May it please you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. Next speaker is Council Lady Lopes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to everybody. I too would want to thank the governor and staff and Inspector Hodge for their information. It is very important to make sure our island is safe and comfortable. And I use the word comfortable because, you know, you want your people to be comfortable like we've been in the past. We want it to continue. Seeing the developments in our neighboring islands with a high crime rate in our neighboring island, it's very important that, you know, that our island be safe. I wanted to also add, I took note of a few days ago, I drove down on the bay and I see so much tire marks in the new road that was just built. And even though, you know, the young people feel it exciting and great to be just round and round through the road, it's very, very, what's the word I would use? Unsafe. That's what the word I'm looking for. It's very unsafe. And besides that, it is damaging the road. So then you have to find money to repair the roads and so that's something that I wanted to make plea to our young people. Even if you want to have some excitement, just be careful. Just be careful and please don't damage the roads that were just renovated. So that's something that I wanted to add with regards to everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Lopes. For my contribution, I too want to thank the governor for responding to the requests of the council, of the committee, with respect to bringing a more concise ordinance, at least at this juncture. And we agree that we will revisit the other parts of the ordinance in future. I think I mentioned in my presentation on Thursday that we have to basically go along with the times, where camera surveillance is becoming norm, I think, in all areas, in all jurisdictions, and even on an individual basis. We know wherever we are these days, whatever is transpiring, something exciting happened, the first thing everyone does is pull their telephone out and start recording. Because, as they say, images don't lie. And so for law enforcement in general, also it's important that we make use of this tool. And I also mentioned about the trends that we are seeing in our community and in neighboring communities. And I think a lot of our youngsters are copying a lot what they see going on elsewhere, thinking there's some excitement in it, and sometimes neglecting the dangers that are right around the corner. So I think in all this camera surveillance is a good thing and will be also a tool to assist law enforcement and police. It does not replace the work that the police has to do, especially in terms of executing laws that are already on the books, because we also have mentioned that that can be done more effectively than we are seeing these days in this community and elsewhere. So this is extra support for the work that the police is doing. This ordinance does not have a time limit, so it is for unlimited time. I want to find out, because then the surveillance is for a specific period of time. Now we are talking about a carnival period. Carnival period starts, but apart from this first period, in the future, when you decide to implement camera supervision, what is the time frame? What for advance notice? Are you required to give advance notice 3 days before, 5 days before? And when you will post those notices that cameras will be operational in a particular area? And also when the period ends, that there's also a public notification of the ending of the period of camera operation. I see on the page 2 of the draft ordinance the mention made of different streets, Concordia Weg, Theodore Pont Road, etc. And at Theodore Pont Road, it says Ford at Congo Man Department Store. I'm just wondering, is it usual, legal, acceptable that you mention specific businesses in the ordinance? I see in the next paragraph, or 2 paragraphs further, gebieden rondom het havengebouw. So I'm wondering why in that first section you also don't say gebieden rondom het luchthavengebouw, for example, rather than specifically singling out a particular enterprise. Okay, those are my questions. And we will give the word now to you, Governor, for answering the questions posed.
Thank you, Central Committee members, for your questions. I think very pleased to hear the deliberation today and the shared concern about the safety of our islands. As you so adequately mentioned, as a Central Committee, we are an island in development, but we cannot lose sight from the fact that we are part of global development. We are also an island that is sandwiched between islands where we see the crime rate increasing every day. Social media exposes this, as well as the press exposes these risks. Councilman Van Putten, you asked about the law enforcement on the helmets. I will, after I answer your questions, give the inspector the opportunity to explain what some of the challenges are there. What we have seen here is the local police can give fines. They do give a lot of fines. However, one of the challenges we encounter with capacity issue is not only the police, it's the entire justice chain broadly, here as well as throughout the kingdom of the Netherlands. And so it can be at times disheartening for our local men and women in blue that when they are issuing fines, because of the shortage, the attention is given more to other types of crimes, whether white-collar crime, drugs, weapons, murders. Those are the type of, so the justice chain itself is struggling. I have, though, confirmed to this council that about shortly before my recent business trip to the Netherlands, that the Public Prosecution Office has committed that they will employ an administrative worker specifically to address these issues of the types of work and the type of fines that the police give, because we cannot keep our men and women in blue discouraged that when they do their work, that there's nothing to show for it, and then the community gets the impression that they are not doing their work. But Inspector Hodge will give you some more insight on that. When it comes to the requirements for the events, Councilman Van Putten, and the security in place, Inspector Hodge will explain on that, because there is a procedure for that, and you are rightly so that we cannot just take anybody who is not trained in the disciplines of security to go and do that type of work. So Inspector Hodge will elaborate on that. The concerns that you share about the traffic violations, we can reflect back. It's just 3 months ago that we've had an incident here in traffic that we hope never repeats itself. Unfortunately, that is not entirely in our hands, because for justice to work, all the parties involved must take their accountability and their responsibility. There's a responsibility for the people in the justice chain, but it's also a responsibility for those who decide to make use of, whether it's a motorbike, a scooter, or even a regular vehicle or truck. That in getting your license, there are certain agreements or trainings that you would have had to be able to operate that vehicle. Unfortunately, we see the incident where in our community, a number of our young people are also driving without the necessary permits. I can share here that at times when law enforcement acts, we would see at times that these bikes are removed, are taken away from the youngsters. And I would say that today, I think you used the phrase last Thursday, without any water on either side of my mouth, that there are parents in this community who could continue to go and purchase these vehicles for their children. So there's a shared responsibility here. You've asked me specifically what I am doing in my authority for public order and safety. And I will say that within our cabinet, especially in light of the recent incident in traffic here that we still can come to terms with, is that within our cabinet, the policy worker is working out the details on how, together with police and the Government Information Service, we can bring some more awareness to this in the traffic violations in particular. I want to share with the Central Committee also that the concerns regarding public order and safety and the capacity issue throughout the justice chain, it is enormous. I have every step of the way in the past 4 years signaled my concerns in my former position and now again regarding public order and safety on our islands, and in particular the shortage of mainly custom officers in our port, as well as the shortage of police officers. And I always make reference to the fact in every conversation that it should not be underestimated that because Statia is a small island, that nothing happens. I refer specifically to the changing world around us, the dynamics in our neighboring islands, and the urgency for capacity. I believe all of us who would read the newspaper, we will see that the KPCN has its struggles. In the meantime, they do have at least 2 training ongoing, two courses, one on St. Martin, where they are recruiting officers for the best islands along with officers for St. Martin, and there's also another class that has started that is recruiting officers for the best. This means that within the coming year, there will be additional officers. Having said that, though, I will share with the council what I say in my internal discussions. I do not want anyone to believe that Statia can run solely and strictly on rookies. While I have appreciation for every young person who joins the police force, and I have all respect for that, because at one point that was my career of choice before I chose the profession that I chose. So I believe in their commitment. However, the world in which we are changing, and St. Eustatius as a small island sandwiched between other islands where we see the criminality rising, and do not underestimate the linkages and the links and the connections that are being made with our young people on this island. So yes, council, the concern is there, and I can share with you at this time, cannot share more than this, but the island governors of the three best islands are in conversation, and we have committed ourselves to taking it to an even higher level beyond the triangle. We meet regularly with the second, with the small triangle and the big triangle, and we are calling for urgency. And urgency in this case requires capacity on the island. We cannot wait until classes are completed, but we are coming with some proposals on how we believe that we can expand the reach and the capacity on our islands, and it requires sometimes what we call a common sense approach or thinking outside of the box. So I want to assure your council and the community of St. Eustatius that public order, safety of this community has my highest priority, and we'll be doing this jointly with my colleague, the governor of Saba and the governor of Bonaire. Councilman Van Putten, you also asked about the visibility. That is a concern that is shared by the community and here as well. I want to share with you that apart from what I am doing in the realms of the justice chain, I'm also internally in conversation with my colleagues in the Executive Council, the two commissioners, because we also need to look at the stage of development of our island. There are certain areas of our island that require better lighting. And so that too can help enforcement in its task. So we are thinking proactively in all areas, because while justice and security has a chain, there are some provisions that we as local government can also put in place, and in collaboration with police force, keep our island much safer than it is currently. You talked about Carnival. It is so that each year as we host our Carnival, it's getting bigger and better. More and more people are flocking to the shores of this island, and we are grateful for the much needed economic spin-off it creates for our stakeholders. It's one of the times of the year that business on Statia really get a much needed income. However, with a growing carnival comes also issues of safety and security. And so annually, when we plan the carnival, we do this in close consultation with the KPCN, the Caribbean Netherlands Police Force, and there too they provide us the extra capacity for this big event of our island. When it comes to the camera surveillance, Councilman Van Putten, at the current moment, the main focus that I have to make this reality, I explained last Thursday that we are getting the support for the cameras. Instead of having to go spend hundreds of thousands in cameras, we are getting good support from the police in the Netherlands, because throughout the Netherlands they have a lot of good cameras. They were used, but because they are constantly updating, these cameras can still be used here on St. Eustatius and give us the quality that we need. I think when we are driving on the streets in the Netherlands, at each corner, when you look up, you will see that there is camera surveillance. The camera surveillance in the European part of the Netherlands is so powerful that at times they can cross border. Public order and safety is resolved very easily because of these cameras. You will even see where, if you are even surpassing the speed limit on the road and you have a rental vehicle, by the time you arrive at Schiphol Airport to return your vehicle, you are presented with the report from the camera surveillance and say, hey, listen, this is your boot. You have to pay this before you could even board the plane. We see also on the neighboring islands, so while we talk about camera surveillance, it's not new. I think we are the last island in the chain. Our neighboring island here in the Best has it already, and Bonaire has it a couple months ago, almost 6 or 7 months ago, maybe even a little longer than we do. And so our ordinance, we reached out to Bonaire and Sable, and based on that, we were able to work along with them in making up the ordinance, at least the one that we presented last week. But with the request of the council for a more step-by-step approach, we have the one on the camera surveillance, but do know that we looked at what they are doing. So throughout the region, we see this as a development, as an instrument that supports public order and safety. Council Lady Spanner, we all share your concern. Stacia woke up to the facing of our streets, our newly paved streets in and around the area there, what we call the parallel road into James. Then on the speed bump there, you see the mess that has been caused, and we see the same thing in front of one of the hotels in Lower Town and even around the former fisherman village. And you are right, this is unacceptable. This can show that these incidents usually happen at night. And with extra eyes that the camera surveillance can provide our island, we can, I don't want to say hinder, but people will feel it in their pockets, because when you know who it is, you can able to say to them, you have so much time to clean it up, or you pay a fine. It's unacceptable, and it's what is considered antisocial behavior. There is no reason to do that, and so we have to, as a community, safeguard against this type of behavior. You can imagine if you are in your home in the James area and this is ongoing, you might peek through your window, but what can you see? You understand? So this will help us greatly to make sure that everyone takes their responsibility. Scooters, vehicles, cars are used to transport and not to create public disorder and defacing of our public spaces. Councilman Schmidt, Chairman, I want to thank you. As you stated, indeed, our island is entering at different times, and we cannot underestimate what the developments will be, but we must prepare for them so that when they come, we are well equipped and we are not running after the facts, but we are ahead of what we think and know is coming. As I mentioned, we see this on all the islands of the Dutch Caribbean, and we see it in other parts of the Caribbean. I want to stress that the camera surveillance does not only help law enforcement, it also helps our unit of permits, licenses, and supervision. Last week, I elaborated on the situation around our island, where we have made significant progress in 2022, 21. We cleaned up a whole lot of the illegal dumps. It cost the government a lot of money. And we see again, the littering has started. It's a total disrespect for community, total disrespect for governments. It is antisocial behavior to collect maybe a $40 or $50 and $60 to $80, whatever the truckloads cost, to take garbage to the dump and to see our island being littered. Again, thank you, Council, for your positive outlook on this ordinance, because it gives our government, the VTH unit, an instrument to act. And I want to take this opportunity to join the Council, and you in particular, Councilman Van Putten, to appeal to the community of St. Eustatius, and in particular homeowners that are making use of transport modes to get your garbage dumped. Please take into consideration that it must be going to the EGL services, and take account the potential of the people that you entrust to dispose of your garbage, the damage that they are causing to this island. Why do I say damage? I say damage in the image of our island that is in development, but also damage to the coffers of government, and a strain on our already limited resources in our capacity. It means our units and our public works and so will have to be running, and the government, if we can't have the capacity, we will have to pay third parties to clean up a mess that can be avoided. However, the camera surveillance gives us an instrument to act, and I want to assure you it is cheaper to go to the dump, display the right behavior, keep our island clean, than the consequences for paying a fine that will follow. Indeed, it's a step-by-step approach. You asked Councilman about Carnival. Carnival is the major event, but it will be a gradual implementation of the camera surveillance around the islands, especially the camera surveillance on the illegal dumping is something we can do almost immediately at virtually no cost to the local government, because the areas that we will be surveilling, we have the support of our local utilities companies that is willing to work and has committed to work with government to putting their cameras in service so they can help us to curtail the effects of the illegal dumping in and around the island. The cabinet that is working on this ordinance, the implementation of this ordinance is already working in close consultation with the Government Information Service and the VTH, so they are all on standby for the implementation, because as you stated correctly, Chairman, there is going to be a need for public awareness and information, and we are already in advanced stages of the discussions with the Government Information Service. You are indeed correct with the name in the ordinance. With your permission, we will correct it on time for Thursday, because at the earlier ordinance from last week, there was also a name, and we removed that, but this was an oversight. You are correct. We do not want it to seem as if we are targeting any business in particular. With your permission, I would allow Inspector Hodge to speak on the 2 points regarding I think it was you, Councilman Van Putten, that had two, the law enforcement policy on the helmets and security in and around the events. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Central Committee.
Thank you once again. Regarding the questions pertains to the policy and the laws as it pertains to the helmet, what I would like to say on that is the law is clear regarding the wearing of helmets. We started almost 3 years now together with the Government Information Service, where some videos was being produced to bring about awareness of the dangers pertaining to that particular matter. We also internally had produced a document, a plan of approach with regards to how we're going to deal with the issues pertaining to the scooters in general, including the helmets. We started with an information session where we went to the radio a number of times and we spoke about it and we tried to bring about awareness information before we actually started to go over to repressively dealing with the situation. Eventually, we started. We confiscated a number of scooters and issued a number of fines. The total amount of fines that we issued last year for 2024 was about close to 90 fines for mainly traffic violation, which the majority included scooters. We ended up facing some challenges where some of the drivers would run home, park the vehicles in their car, in their yard. And when we entered the yard, we had some challenges with the parents of the drivers. Some mothers, some grandparents attacked the police even with sticks, broomsticks, hitting a police officer with it, trying to stop them from going with the bike. They were under the impression that we had no authority to come into the yard, that we needed a warrant, which is not the case. The home is protected, not the yard. And then there was another incident where it got physical when a female attacked another officer and there was an altercation, and that escalated where the children also attacked the police. We decided to hold on our plan of approach to bring about more awareness for parents to understand that we do have the authority to come into the yard. We want to have a de-escalating approach as opposed to having to use force for traffic violations. Some youngster riding on a bike, just having fun, not realizing the danger, and that would escalate into police using force against their parents. So we decided of a different approach, and we started issuing fines, not necessarily taking away the bikes from the youngsters, but we see them, we know them, we make the fine, and then when we see them, we're obligated to let them know on such and such a day, a fine, we saw you riding, you're going to get a fine for it. What happened there is that the individuals, the target groups, especially those youngsters on the scooter, they never show up to court when they don't pay the fine, number one. Then it goes to court and they don't show up. But although they're absent, they are by the judge convicted to pay the fine. And they never pay the fine. And this was something that we mentioned to the prosecutor's office, that the target group that we want to address are not being dealt with because they don't pay the fine, they don't show up to court. Recently they continue with the process of issuing 3 summon for them to come and pay the fine. After the 3rd summon, they still have to decide what's going to happen then. If they still don't appear after the 3rd summon, the prosecutor will then have the option to, well, I don't think in the case of the youngsters they'll be arrested, but normally with a regular adult, they can be arrested and sit for the amount of days equivalent to the amount of fines. For the youngsters, they still have to figure out what's the appropriate measures to take if they don't pay the fine. So at the moment, that is part of the situation that we encounter, where the target group that we want to affect so that they can stop with their illegal behavior of the traffic ordinance, that's where we are at this moment. Part of the challenges we have been facing as well is as the governor already mentioned, the parents. We had some cases where the youngster will even brag, I don't care, my mother's going to buy it back for me, or they come and they pay the fine and they give the child back the vehicle. This is an ongoing situation where in our information campaigns we try to encourage the parents to stop allowing their children to commit these offenses. A growing dangerous behavior is we see some of those youngsters, as they're speeding on the bikes, they are bumping into each other at high speeds or kicking the bike. So they're racing next to each other, and while racing, they're kicking the bike. That's a fun thing. the indications, information that we have with regards to the tragic event that took place some months ago, the information that we have so far is that that was part of the reason why the collision occurred, that bumping and kicking each other while racing next to each other. So these are behaviors that we are trying to discourage, but unfortunately, we have adults, not only parents, adults, family, friends that are giving them the bike. When we try to give the owner of the vehicles the fine, the prosecutor said from a judicial perspective, we can't give the owners of the vehicle a fine because we'll go to the owners of the vehicle and tell them, this youngster is driving your bike. We will take the key, hand them back the bike, and then we'll give it to them. When we stop them again, they will tell us, they took up the key and they didn't know. So we'll tell them they'll stop putting the key where the child or the youngster can find it. And this is an ongoing situation from a judicial perspective to deal with the adults that are enabling the children or the youngsters to behave in the way they're behaving. Another aspect, another challenge that we're facing, we are not allowed to chase after the youngsters on the bike. It unfortunately, some years ago in Curacao, a police officer was chasing some youngsters and the youngsters fell and the car rode over them and they eventually died. Given that fact, we are not allowed to chase after them, not for a traffic violation. For something more serious, it can be allowed, but even then we have to weigh we have to be very proportionate and reasonable in deciding to chase someone on a bike because the danger that it poses for themselves as well as other road users. And on Statia, it's not at all recommended to engage in high-speed chases, especially given the fact that the roads are so small and narrow, pedestrians walking on the road, all kinds of side roads coming from all different angles, and it's not advisable to do. So that's why we're choosing the direction that we're going. In 2024, we confiscated 13 scooters. A number of those scooters have been destroyed, and there's still some pending a judicial process to either give it back to the owners or to have them destroyed. So we are busy, actively busy trying to deal with it as best as we can. And the impression that a lot of people have is that nothing is being done. But we have to be very, in dealing with it, we can't endanger the lives of the individuals that we want to target for the traffic violation. So that is challenges that we are facing as well. Concerning, I just want to touch on the capacity issue. Our organogram, our organizational structure, there's 13 officers that are officially part of the team on Statia, including the Chief of Basic Police Service. For a very long time, we have been operating below that capacity. We have a active duty module and an on-call module. So for the better part of the day, between 14 to 16 hours, we have police on active duty, and the rest is on call. I think it's high time that we run a 24-hour-a-day active police duty, but that is unfortunately not possible with the capacity that we have. Between January of this year and the beginning of April, we had a total of 4 police officers that was running a 24-hour-day shift because of individual officers being sick. We had to assist on Sabre because Sabre had the same thing. So between those months, Sabre and Statia, we had a total of 4 officers on each island. And with those officers, we had to run the police operation. So that contributed to the visibility of the police being very poor. So I would also use this opportunity to ask the members of this body to encourage our youngsters to join the police, because the qualification, what we have seen over the years is that a lot of individuals that apply are usually not qualified, and there's various reasons for that. And the ones that are qualified don't necessarily want to have Bonaire as their base of operation. That recently changed, but there are different aspects that affect the recruitment process. As it pertains to the security, what we do realize a lot of the members of the security firms are young and or very immature and or not trained for the job. What we do, especially when there's a major event, we try to, as much as possible, engage with the security, speak to them about cooperating with them, what they expect, what they can expect from us as police as it pertains to securing an event, and vice versa. At times, we even take one of their radios that they have so that they have direct contact with the dispatch. So if there's an incident, we can respond directly. What we have been having is that some security will go to an event and the security are of no use. They're telling us they didn't see a fight happen, they don't know what happened, it was on the other side. It's very, the cooperation sometimes is not what it should be. We even encourage them to invest in what they call those GoPro cameras, that when the officers are operating, that they can have some kind of deterrent, because a lot of people don't respect the security officers. One of the things that we are trying to discourage promoters from doing is in their contingency plan, their Veiligheid plan, they usually have that the police is going to take care of the security. As police, our job is not to work as security officers at an event. We are there to maintain public order and safety, and we want to do that together with the security. What we have been proactively doing, we got in contact with some of those agencies on St. Martin that train the security officers over there, to bring them in contact with the ones here so that they can upgrade their officers so that they are better equipped to secure events. Unfortunately, until now, because of the cost, a lot of promoters don't provide the security that they need. Fortunately for the bigger ones, the Carnival, the Station Day festivities, the Easter festivities, those yearly big events, we do get security, but again, the cooperation needs to improve. Every time we have an event, we try to sit with them, we sit with them, and we go through security measures, how we're going to work together as police and security to safeguard the event. So that's a process, part of the policy that is in place. With regards to the application process, where individuals are complaining about asking for permits and not getting it, it is our experience that some individuals, they keep events knowing that they don't have a permit to do so. The event policy is pretty clear on when event when an event permit is needed. Individuals have businesses where they're allowed to entertain their guests. The entertainment is part of the purpose for which the permit was given. So they have a restaurant, then they would have the opportunity to have an entertainer entertain while they are having dinner or whatever in the evening. What happens is after that, the restaurant closes, and then the business take on a complete different purpose that is not in their permit. They turn into a nightclub. For some time now, we have been engaged in that process, trying to get especially the establishment that want to keep nightclub to soundproof the establishment and to adhere to the safety guidelines for a nightclub. The safety guidelines for a restaurant and a nightclub is two different things. We try to encourage them to put more lights. They are of the opinion that the lights would run their customers, but the dark areas promotes illegal behaviors. We try to ask them, we try to convince them to get security, get cameras. They find that the cameras as well will run their customers, because some customers do object to them putting cameras. But with our capacity issues, those measures are what help us in securing events, which will help us also when a request comes in for us to give a positive advice to the governor to allow them to keep the event if they have those things in place: cameras, proper lighting, and security. Some individuals put cameras, but then they don't put them on, because when there's an incident, we go, oh, the cameras are not working. These are some of the challenges that we're facing with individuals who submit requests for an event. What we also have to take into consideration is some establishments are located in the middle of a residential area, and they want a permit to keep a DJ, a band, every weekend. And then they use the reasoning, but look for the carnival, it's making a lot of noise. Look for Station Day, it's making a lot of noise. Why are we not allowed to do the same? Our approach is those are cultural events that is not every day of the year. But for some individuals, they would like to play music at a very high level. And we're telling them, if you have an establishment, you're playing for your guests, but they want to put speakers outside that turn it up that loud that the entire neighborhood is disturbed by it. And then we would tell them no. But we don't tell them no, we give advice to the governor to not issue the permit based on those things. Some of them, we give them the benefit of the doubt. Then they have it like a yo-yo. We leave, they turn up the music. We get calls, the music disturbing. We come down, they turn it back down. So because of capacity issues, we can't have people all over at the same time to be able to see for ourselves so that we can act. So then we keep going and coming to some locations. Some of the other locations as well have no permit for music, absolutely none. Even in their regular business license, they are not allowed to play music, but they still do. And these are, again, some of the challenges that we are faced as law enforcement. One of the challenges we face as well is stopping a party at 2 in the morning. The chances, the risk of escalating increases very much, because at times we have the owner of the establishment instigating violence from the crowd against the police. So then you will have individuals who are intoxicated, drinking the whole night, don't want the party to stop. Then they see the police coming to stop the party at that moment as the problem. And then we had situations where officers were threatened. They threatened to burn our cars. And usually, I think because of the fact that, I think because of the older officers here that know the community, that know certain people, that don't act on it. But we always choose to, most times, what they call in Dutch, terughoudend, we try to de-escalate the problem as opposed to escalating it. But those are situations that can escalate at any given moment if the individual, the police on duty, would not be very tactful and see the bigger picture of taking into consideration the proportionality and the reasonableness of our action against what can transpire should the situation escalate. And then they will put themselves in a position where they will have to use force, which would be, at the end of the day, when you go and look at the results, is force was used against an individual because they were playing loud music. And that, I don't think that's a very good picture for Station in general, because Station is not known to be a place where there's riots or where there's a lot of violence being acted out. So these are the things that we consider before we go. So we'll much rather go earlier, and that is what we do. We go to the businesses before and we tell them, you need to put in a permit, but they just don't. Some of them disagree because I can understand when I came here the first time in 95, this has been the practice. But when we tell them, okay, just like was alluded, station development, there's a lot of new challenges that we're being faced with, especially when it comes to safety aspect, and they just don't care. Their point of departure is, I want to make money, and you are disturbing us from making the money with all of these new measures that we want to take that is geared towards safety. And again, these are things that we are working with. I must say there's a lot of business owners who understand and they work with us. But there's a few that still engages in these types of behavior, and then they would instigate violence towards us, and then that's the situation we have to deal with. I think that is all that I have at this moment.
Before you go, Officer Hodge, a follow-up question on the helmet design, because I see some folks wearing one of those old military battlefield helmets that just cover the top of the head and not below. Is there any specific requirement legally for the design of the helmet that you have to enforce?
The traffic ordinance used the word een duidelijke helm. That it was never defined what grade or what quality is they're referring to. So we were busy as well checking in the Netherlands what do they see as a suitable helmet that is safe. So at this moment, I can't give you a direct answer as to which one will be deemed duidelijk, which one will be deemed suitable, but this is something that we are busy trying to figure out. And Bonnier, they have the same question: what is duidelijk? Which helmet do we consider to be safe or not? So that's something we're actively busy with at the moment.
If you get that information from the Netherlands, because I've been in the Netherlands, I don't see anyone with driving the kind of helmets that I see. Everyone has helmets that properly cover the entire face, okay? So you can get that advice from them, as you say. Thank you. Madam Governor, you want to make a point?
With your permission, Chairman and Central Committee, I want to give a little context when it comes to the issuing of events permits. There must always be a balance between what we do in our community. We have to look at a community where there should be peaceful coexistence. As mentioned by Inspector Hodge, the majority of our restaurants that are turned into nightclubs are located in residential areas. We have in these areas people who are ill, people who are elderly, people who have heart complications. And those are all factors that we must take into consideration. So there is no attempt to take away the fun from people, but to try to manage the peaceful coexistence. I can share with you that at one point, as Governor, we had quite a difficult conversation regarding one of the nightclubs on the island that was not properly insulated, soundproof. And there was a constant having to address the ombudsman. When citizens, residents feel that their interest is not met, they go to the local government and they complain. But if the local government is issuing permits that puts them in an uncomfortable situation, they have the right to go to the ombudsman. And those are also some of the behind the scene development that you have. I know of persons in this community who have to work shift starting 7 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I know of individuals who know when there's a party advertised, they leave their home and pay to stay a night in a hotel so they can get a proper rest to go to work the next morning. So it's about finding the balance. There must be room and space for everyone. So as the best thing would be if some of these business owners are willing to properly soundproof their establishments, the conversation will change. The conversation will change, and we can afford them also some more space. But the neighborhood, it's not fair that the neighborhood is kept awake at night, long hours, because of a few people. And I will say this, sometimes the people who operate these nightclubs don't even live in the area that is being disturbed. So we have to take into account there must be peaceful coexistence in everything that we do. So that was my final on this. So, you know, just asking everybody to take all the factors into consideration when it comes to what we want, what is acceptable, and what we can and cannot do when not everything is properly in place. So it's trying to give the possibilities where it can. One of the things that we say to persons who apply for the special permits, do so in advance, but also there's the agreement, do not create an expectation before you do have the green light. And so sometimes you see some people, they push the lever because they want to, in a different way, instigate the public against doing what we believe can be striking the right balance for the community. As Inspector Hodge has said, we have come a long way. There are those who are following and trying to create the right balance, but there are a number that we still need to work on so that we can work together as a community with government and with law enforcement.
Thank you. It's opportunity now for a second round of discussion. Okay, so we will commence with Councilman Simmons in the second term.
In my time.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Councilman van Putten.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the governor and the police commissioner for the information. I think that a lot was said pertaining to what is going on. And when I listen to some of the things that was said, I'm wondering if this has become a lawless state, you know, with all of this taking place. But I think a lot of emphasis was brought primarily on the safety of the bikes and also the situation with the business establishments. But I don't have a problem that if business establishment is having activities in the weekend, I don't think much happen in the week. And so at the end of the week, I noticed there's a lot of people in station like the Broken Party. And I don't have a problem with that. But I think that indeed there must be a situation where you keep the music inside and you don't disturb the neighborhood. So I'm wondering if there was meetings in the past, and because of these new concerns, if both the government and the police commissioner is open, you know, to repeat, you know, those type of meetings and so forth with these business establishments. But while we talk about the business establishment, Mr. Chairman, there's a bigger concern in my opinion, because I saw that have become a norm where you have a lot of cars driving around the islands with these loud music. When we sat at the Parliament building, sometime I know in the past, the speakers had to stop because you couldn't hear what we were saying to each other, never mind to get out to the public. And I think that it's becoming more and more a concern in the community. I experience it every day, sitting at Camp David, they pass up and down Sometimes they're in other areas, maybe not too far from the residents, and you hear the music, and sometimes you wonder, well, what is the situation with these people's hearts? Even the ear bells, because it is extraordinary. Beside that, we also know that the number of those young radicals, Turks, who drives around with these music end up parking up by nightclubs. And the music, maybe inside is loud, but outside is even louder. See how a double whammy. And then obviously, the proprietors own of the nightclubs. Sometimes they carry the blame because these people are packed up outside of the establishment while the event is taking place. What is the police commissioner doing? What policies in place? Because I'm told that there's a ordinance in place since 2022, traffic ordinance. Is this traffic ordinance being fully implemented? Because that should be a deterrent as well, where that is concerned. I spoke here in the past, Mr. Chairman, pertaining the need for more patrol. I understand that you're saying that you should have 13 people, including the police commissioner, and you're functioning below that. You spoke about the need for more young men and women. But we also have a problem there because we know that the Dutch is not the mother tongue here in this community. And I'm not saying to take away your Dutch totally, but I think that you need to also, because I think yourself did it in the past, where, because I serve as a member of the Andean Parliament, and those issues came up a lot where a lot of young people in Curacao wanted to be, and even though they speak more Dutch maybe there than here, it was an issue for them. And so how does the government, or the governor and the police commissioner, look towards maybe having a sort of tailor-made, I'm not saying take away the Dutch completely, but at least some of the tests and so forth, it'd be a combination of both. Because I know in the past, so even now with the KPC and Bonaire, quite a number of your young people participated, and they were failed. I just spoke with the Mrs. Toots last week. I didn't the week before we traveled together from St. Martin on my way to Curacao for a function. And I also spoke there about the need for immigration as well as custom officers. So what do you think about that? Maybe looking at the requirements, but not only the requirements, the language that one would have to use when you're going through the process. For the thing I spoke about the police getting out those jeeps and riding bicycles. I consider Curacao my second home because I grew up there as well. And I saw the young, energetic Minister Hatu, just prior to the election campaign, during the election campaign, came with a fleet of bicycles where the policeman is driving around on bicycles. I'm not saying they took away all the cars, but they're driving on bicycles. And I think that if we see more patrol, more visibility, I mean, in the dark days, we had Temmers and the Richardson, you don't even know them, you wasn't born. But those people, and even after that, they were driving around on bicycles, but it was also patrolling on the feet. So people would always be more concerned knowing that the police could show up. But today that is not the case. I spoke about very often you're calling and you're not getting them. I understand the explanation, but we need to have 24 hours police on the island. I also, in the past, called for the resumption of the VKE. The VKE was a very, very important tool in the community. And I know that becoming part of the so-called Nederlandse Staatsbestel, the Dutch constitutional state, they were saying that that was not possible. But I said to people, I am not Holland. I am Statia. And I don't believe that everything that is applicable, Mr. Chairman, to Holland, that it should be applicable to us. And I think that is something that the local authorities should be willing to discuss with the Dutch government, the Ministry of Justice and Security, where this vehicle is concerned. I know in the past we also had the young brigade where you had a lot of these young Turks, the boot camp. I think it need to be reestablished. We have too many young people, and I love the young people. I engage with them, they challenge me about the racetrack and all the different things. But we have a lot of young people, I believe they mean well, but they lack the discipline. Now, I heard you said that the police was beaten with stick. Parents came out to fight. I mean, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable, because I am not saying that the police should abuse the authority. But if you have a situation where the police is trying to enforce the law, trying to protect public order and safety, and then you have parents, you should lock the parents the hell up. They should be locked up, not the children. I would lock them up. And I said that with no apology, even if I was running again. I said with no apology. Because that is unacceptable, where you have your child, or children, endangering public safety. And then when you are doing the job, that parents come in to fight and beat. I mean, this sounds very much to me like a lawless state. And I think the police need to act. I'm hearing, that fines are being given if they are written, and they're supposed to. I know in the dark days, when the judge calls you, you gotta show up. You have to show up. And if you skip the first time, you wasn't present the second time, they send the police for you. A senator and majority leader. I had an example where a senior government official was required to show up to the Island Council, and they didn't come. And I instructed the Island Secretary to use the police to bring them there. Sometimes you have to be very firm to ensure, Mr. Chairman, that things become the order of the day. So I believe that when we hearing about this type of situation, where parents are not cooperating, it's dangerous. I agree with you totally with the lighting. During my time as senator as well, I used that function to make sure that we had more policemen and women come into the island, more people get involved, and so on. But I see we have these marshalls, and I know they're border control officers. How effective? Because I see a lot of them driving around here. They're moving and they're bringing them from time to time. But you mostly see them at the airport and sometimes at the thing. But what do we define as borders? Just the airport, sitting in the office in the airport, or the harbor, or just controlling and ensuring that the borders of your island, because I don't know who comes in at nights, who brings in what at nights, before dawn. So what is the true role of the marshal? Is it simply just sitting in an office at the airport or the harbor, stamping a passport? Some of them rude enough to ask me how long I come here for. So I asked one of them sometime back, I said, you don't know the name? You don't know the name Clive Van Putten, synonymous in the kingdom? You don't see where I was born? But they need to be used more effectively, in my opinion. Now, with the lighting in the different part of the island, I think you're right. We did a lot of work in the Whitewall area. A lot of work. But I believe in other parts, even in residential areas, they are too dark. Now, the manager of Stuco, who I worked very well with, we had some fundamental disagreements as well. He said, yeah, but you ought to have to send, you know how he speaks, you need to send a list ahead of time. But Stuco for 100% is owned by government. And we are not getting any dividends that I've been asking for quite some while. So I believe I'm not seeing the commissioner sitting on the table. But I believe that the government post must send a list and pointing out the area. I also believe government need to appoint a city inspector. I'm seeing government appoint all kind of people in this country. Just now they want to appoint one to tell you how much time a week you must make love to your partner. But maybe we need to appoint a city inspector with the responsibility that that person go around not just in the city, but the whole community, and to be able to report back to the executive council any inefficiencies or anything that he or she sees that need to be worked on. Because again, I'm saying we have a lot of people coming into this country. A lot of things is happening. And station isn't the station of even 10 years ago, never mind 30, 40 years ago. And whether we believe it or not, things what is happening in New York is happening right here. Sometimes when my network feedback and tell me of the things that is happening in this country, I am shocked. This is going on in station, but this is a reality. So I think before things escalate more, I think that we need to, first of all, again, I'm saying, implement the traffic regulation fully, have more patrols, including having your officers, Mr. Police Commissioner, walking, patrolling in the district, but also getting them, it might help their physical structure by riding those bicycles as well, like they're doing in Curacao. We want to see that. I appeal that we should have regular consultation with the business establishments where the sounds and other things is concerned. But I also believe that the government need to trade up. They need, but I don't remember the word now, but the government need to enforce the law. You know, where the noise coming from these vehicles are concerned, it is outrageous. And I think, as you said, there is the regular consultation between the governors. And so I believe that there should be a discussion, a broad discussion, with the resumption and reestablishment of the VKE, because it will help in that boot camp, because we need it. I'm seeing too many of our young people, and not just having a boot camp with them dressing up in a certain fatigue, but at least there would be different program, vocational program, that will benefit them and help them to make a better contribution within the community. So, Mr. Chairman, I leave it here, and I look forward to the reaction. But again, listening this afternoon that parents are behaving in such an erratic way, lock them the hell up. I said it before, and I want to re-emphasize this, but information is always important. And I don't challenge the fact that government want to continue to inform or re-inform via the different means. But our people know. They know exactly what needs to be done. But sometimes we need to put zero tolerance in certain situations. And if that becomes the order of the day, then I'm quite sure you would see a different response and you would get much better results than is taking place. But may I warn that policemen, people in senior positions in this country, must also start setting the examples. Because I live here, I walk around, I know what is taking place, I know who play loud music. Not only the Dominicans, not only the Guyanese and the Jamaicans, because they do, but we have a lot of our own people who also play extraordinary loud music. And the authorities must act, and they must act swift and decisive if we are to bring law and order back to this country. May it please you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. Council Lady Lopes-Banner.
I don't have much to say. All I would like to make mention is I listened to Inspector Hodge, and all I can say is a lot of work has to be done with our little island to keep our community safe. So my support is given to keep our island safe, however possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lady Lopes. Banner. Okay, I give the word now to you, Governor, for your response.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased with the feedback I'm getting from you as a council regarding Statia public order and safety. Councilman Van Putten, it looks like you are in the back of my head and reading my notes, but I'm happy to hear it coming from you because I can share with you some of the plans that I have, because this meeting is not a meeting just for the Central Committee to debate back and forth, but we have a community that is following and listening, and our community needs to be assured that everything is being done by the authorities here and elsewhere to safeguard public order and safety.
Mr. Van Putten.
I just want to say to the governor that it is based on my 40 plus years of experience as a politician, a servant of the people. I have that connection with the people in the good times and in the bad times. So I could empathize and understand the concerns. And when I speak here today, I know some leaders, some politicians will be fearful in giving and making certain expression and calling for certain things. But I'm not afraid, because any good leader should be able to look at their people, even when they support you, and tell them the things at times that they may not like to hear. And I am known for that, and I won't apologize for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. That's why I started off my deliberation by saying I'm very pleased, because the feedback that I'm getting from this Central Committee is exactly what you're stating, that we must speak to our people directly, openly, and honesty, and call them out when their behavior is not in accordance to the established rules and regulations, and their performance is putting our island and its people at risk. I can inform the Central Committee that meetings are scheduled in August with a number of stakeholders to address the very concerns that you speak about, Mr. Van Putten, to meet with the stakeholder groups on some of the topics that we're having here, calling them to accountability and discussing with them how we can further improve the communication and the collaboration. Your concern about the loud music, Inspector Hodge will engage you on that. You are right about the young thugs at the pack-up nightclubs. That will also be addressed. The reference to the bad behavior of the parents was just to give you an illustration as an island council. Because you are the representative body, the body elected by the people, it is good to give you context of the type of behavior that is encountered. That does not mean that nothing is being done. In the cases where parents displayed the conduct that was explained and shared with you as a council and as a community, we want to assure you that those parents were persecuted and were made to pay a fine because of the type of behavior. Today was just a matter of sharing to show you the direction and the culture that is trying to take root in our community. The tailor-made tests in English that you referred to for certain levels of training that could hopefully give more participation of our young people who may want to enter the police force. I know at the start of this new relationship with the Netherlands that there was a major concern where that is regarding, and that was mainly in the fire department, and I saw there where they made some concession, because you know the whole principle is, do you need to know Dutch to out a fire? And so there some concessions were made, and we see, especially on Sabre and Statia, more access, more young people taking up the responsibility. I can share with you, Councilman Van Putten, that that has my attention. The suggestions that you made were suggestions exactly what I shared in my meeting with the governors. We meet 4 times a year. In Harlingen, when we returned from the Vlieland Island, that was one of the recommendations that I made. How can we explore the reintroduction of the voluntary police force? To be honest, I did not focus on the boot camp, but I'm happy that you reminded me of this, because that is something that I will look into as well. I want to also speak about a common sense approach, because while within the kingdom we may encounter a shortage, how can we think outside the box? I cannot make a commitment that it will happen, but I can share with you, Central Committee, and with the community, that I've also asked how can we explore the possibility of looking at towards Suriname. The language is Dutch. There is a relationship where maybe you can get some senior officials who may be able to come and help and support us under a period of an agreement until such time. So know that that is also one of the areas that the governors are also looking at, because I can see where the police is hard at work, but the urgency for the 2 smallest islands, and I speak today for Statia, the urgency is high. I fully support your call for 24-hour police, but if we should wait the process that we are in now, that won't happen, and therefore some of the suggestions that you made, which are one of the ones that I made already within the caucus of governors regarding the voluntary police force. Of course, that will take some time, but we have to think outside of the box, and Suriname as an alternative.
Putin.
I don't really want to interrupt, but you made reference of Suriname, and I know during the period of Governor Gittins, I think a similar possibility was explored. But I think that sometime in the Netherlands, and I'm not jumping on Bonaire, I don't have Bonaire's on the staff. I go there often, but they should be, because it's a much bigger island than us. But they do have much more than us. But I think in a case like this, like you very well put it, police in Suriname, I assume that they have to follow more or less the same requirements, and they speak Dutch. They are part of the former kingdom. But I think maybe it might be useful for the Island Council, maybe to pass certain resolutions helping to strengthen these type of requests, because very often you go and you talk maybe one-on-one with the parliament, with a certain minister, and they tell you they hear you. But once you leave the room, they have bigger fish to fry, so they really don't take it on. But I think maybe some of them have the Island Council, because again, your island is in development, and if the Island Council would pass a certain resolution, I saw right now there's a proposal as a result of the crime situation that is escalating in Bonaire, that the Island Council of the best came up with some document that eventually will go to the Hague. And I think where we are concerned here, I think maybe we need to go in that direction, stressing the importance to the parliament, to the ministry concerned to, in this regard, if we could get people from Bonaire, from Suriname for a certain period, that it might help. Because it's always better to, pack on the issue before it escalates, attack it before, it festers and become a more serious concern.
Thank you, Councilman Van Putten. I'm happy you raised that, and I would say here today to the Central Committee, I would welcome that level of support for our island in 2022. As government commissioner at the time, I had already signaled my grave concerns about public order and safety in a letter to the then Minister of Justice and Security regarding the need for urgency on our island. I do believe and would welcome the extra support for the urgency from the members of the Island Council. So I look forward to the moment, possibly after recess, that you too can add your urgency to the matter, because we all acknowledge we are an island in development, and it cannot be underestimated the importance of security and safety on station. So thank you for making that recommendation. I can share with you also that already in the urgency, you will see at times that there is a collaboration with the St. Martin Police, so from time to time, they would also even support the KPCN. So from time to time, you would see officers from St. Martin working here. So I want to also illustrate that within the current construct, there are efforts ongoing, but in my responsibility of public order and safety, I would like to see more, because I always believe that it is important to invest in advance than afterwards. And I think a well-known saying we have in our community is prevention is better than cure. So on that note, I want to also say and to confirm to you, Councilman, that yes, indeed, both commissioners, one responsible for infrastructure and one for public works and services, we are exploring the possibility for the lighting. You made correct reference to what we see at Whitewall, but to reduce the cost, we are exploring the same possibility at Whitewall, where you saw Public Works, the lighting at Whitewall, they are solar operated, so they're operated on sunlight. So that type of investment will not necessarily cost the coffers of government too much. So that is the area that is being explored.
Putin.
As to what the government have in its coffers, yes or no, because I don't interfere in those day-to-day business. But again, I'm saying that it is urgent, and I believe that Stuco, as a good corporate company belonging to government at 100%, should also step up to the plate and have to fund some of these lights that you're talking about. Because yes, if government have to buy them, and I'm not saying that government shouldn't buy, but again, Stuco is not paying any dividend to the government. I will continue to say that till I'm no longer in this house, and even when I'm outside. And because of the urgency in certain areas of the island, I think that before the year end, I would like to see the island more lit up in particular areas. And I think that Stuco, and even the oil terminal, despite the financial challenges that they say they have, I believe even they can make contribution in this regard to ensure that the island have better lighting, especially in the evening hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. I will take that along and reach out, considering as shareholder representative of the public entity, but for public consumption, I also want to share that Stuco is actively engaged in the camera surveillance, because it requires not only where the illegal dumping will take place, but they have and are working with us for the implementation of the wider camera surveillance that we will make use of their poles. There is a protocol that you have to follow, so their poles will be used to install, because that is what you need, the length and the height and the breadth. So they are working along with us. Well, Stuco is the corporate company. Yes, it's a government-owned but yes, it's a public company, but at the same time, there are procedures that must be followed, and to make use of the poles, there must be a formal request and a formal approval. It's a matter of the formality. So on that note, I've concluded, Chairman, and want to thank the members of the Central Committee for this very good dialogue.
Thank you, Madam Governor. I think you see Mr. Hodge still has to update on something else.
Once again, I wanted to mention there is a solution that was proposed with regards to the VKE, so the Vrijwillige Korps. voluntary corps, there is a process where they can become voluntary police officers. And the idea is that there will be one command structure with the VKE. There was two command structures, and the volunteers there were accountable to a different chain of command. But in our present structure, the vrijwillige korps, the voluntary police officer will be wearing our uniform, and they will be falling under the direct command structure of the police. Unfortunately, the members of the VKE are a very proud group, and they want that. They are fighting to get that, but at this present moment, that's just not possible. And they're unwilling to work with the police. So again, I would like to use this opportunity to let the public know, if there are individuals that are interested in that, that is also a possibility. And then they will be trained, and they'll be trained to execute that type of work. Also for the carnival, I just wanted to mention we're having 10 extra officers coming in as of the 17th, and they'll be here for the entire period. And during that period, the official announcement will come that there will be a zero tolerance. Individuals that are disrupting, causing public brawls, if they're arrested, they will stay in prison for the duration of the carnival. Also, vehicles that are being confiscated for whatever reason, be it for helmet, insurance, number plate, also would stay impounded for the duration of the carnival. So we're asking people to conduct themselves in an orderly fashion and let us have this, as usual, a very safe and enjoyable period.
Thank you, Inspector Hodge. Council Lady Lopes Banner, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention because several times I hear a mention about the Dutch, but we're living in this technology world nowadays. So I think even if they don't not know Dutch, and if the documents have to be in Dutch, it's just a matter of translation. So I don't see that a big issue. And then the next thing I wanted to mention is that I am so glad to hear about this way of getting extra police here with thinking about Suriname. I think that's a wonderful idea. I remember a guy used to be coming here with the Machichers, I think, from Suriname. And yeah, if you can get police officers here, that would be a great, great help, because I know, as we're saying, the islands have so much potential. I think we need to, right now, as the governor said, prevention better than cure. We need to start as soon as possible to engage having our police, our islands safe. And in that case, bringing people, police from Suriname or wherever, I really would like us to start that process as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady Lopes. Madam Governor.
Chairman, apparently Councilman Van Putten is indebted an answer on one of his questions, and that regards the noise pollution coming from moving vehicles. Inspector Hodge will respond to that, and then we can close off with your permission, Chairman.
Regarding the vehicles with the music, it is against the law to drive around with the vehicles causing noise pollution. There are two laws that governs this: is the Penal Code and also the APV. The APV is talking about the prohibition for the vehicles with loud music causing noise pollution. The competent authority for the enforcement of the APV are the buffaloes. They are the one assigned to do that. We use a different law. It doesn't necessarily speak about noise pollution. It talks about rumoer, they call it in Dutch, in the Penal Code, and that one is mainly geared towards the night hours. but we are working with the buff police to deal with that. One challenge there again, Statia is fast becoming a bit, to use the terms, a bit unruly, where if we look to confiscate and arrest the individuals in particular that's doing this, we can expect a major response. We would have family members of those individuals attacking the police and or engaging them, especially when they're in their free time, especially the police from Bonaire, when they go out, they would attack them or threaten them, which is a concern of ours that we are dealing with.
Mr. Van Putten, Mr. Van Putten.
Now, I don't want the impression, because again, I call for caution and not to abuse with the cameras and blah, blah, blah. I call for that. But again, I'm saying that I listened to the governor, and you have been very emphatic where the noise coming from the establishments are concerned. But I have a bigger concern with them out there now is the police commissioner telling me that you're willing to circumvent the law. I'm asking a question. You're willing to circumvent the law by stopping Clyde Jr., my boy, if he's making noise, because you fear Clyde won't call the Island Council meeting and blaze the police that he won't go on the radio. And when we go, the new police coming from Bonaire or by certain establishment, I might get, that is unacceptable. If you are saying to me, you mentioned 2 areas of the law that speaks about this, and the police need to enforce the law without fear or favor. And so if, because I understood that when the policemen come from Bonaire and the Wajir local girls, that's where the fighters come. But I am not sure if people are going to fight them because you stop people from driving around with this noise. And this is the problem we got in this country. It's too much family and friend. I ain't going to take action against Marlon because he's my good friend and my cousin. But if he do wrong, he needs to be prosecuted. At least he needs to be warned. And if he don't live up to the expectation of the law, then you have to implement the law. So I don't want to hear this thing that there is some apprehension, Chairman, because when these police officers come from Bonaire, or St. Martin, or maybe even Holland, that if you take a particular action, that they are fearful they will be attacked. If they are attacked indiscriminately, then they have to defend themselves. But I cannot accept the answer from the police commissioner after just telling me that there is 2 different areas in the law that gives the police the authority, the right to act and enforce the law, that we are not doing it because we have, no. I don't accept that. And so I'll be watching. I'll be watching critically. There's a budget debate coming up. And if something doesn't happen, because it's carnival period, there's a lot of bling bling going on at this point in time. It's summer. And so I expect that it's going to intensify. Both the issue with, I spoke earlier very passionately about the movements with these young people with the motorbikes, but they're going to escalate as well with the noise with the cars. And so the police must act. I'm not saying to abuse the power, but the police must act to ensure that this place remain a law-abiding state and not a lawless state. Thank you, sir.
One of the strategies of addressing these situations is when we have a full force that we can control the situation, we will act. Being to the Howden, being strategic in choosing when and where to address issues is part of our approach, where we don't want to be using force indiscriminately which is oftentimes would be described as abuse of power, uses of force. So we will use it when it is the odds are in our favor. Thing is, when there is a lot of police officers on the island, these things don't occur. They occur very rarely. And the thinking behind of that is because they see that there is numbers and there is an opportunity to control a situation better. Usually during those periods of time, it's pretty quiet. You don't have a lot of these types of, but as soon as the numbers leave and they realize we are back to the normal daily operation, that's the moment they choose to take a lot of risk. And being to the hardened is just a, can't find the English word now, it's just a strategy in determining how and where. And what we do in those cases, we will make reports and then use a whole different approach where they will receive fines and or if the prosecutor gives permission to confiscate those items, that will come. But then that happens outside of the public view. And an impression that is created as nothing is being done. But there is the direct approach where the odds are against us, leading to the fact that we have to use force. And again, when you look at the policy with regard, the law with regard to proportionate and reasonable, we have to also take that into account before we just go and indiscriminately use force that can be labeled as abuse of being abusive towards the citizen. And with regards to the footage from the camera that has been destroyed, the officers that are assigned to that program are officers that are screened to the highest level. Not any police have access to that system. It's a complete different server where those footages are being stored, and only the officers that are screened within the intelligence department are authorized to use that. Same thing with our body cams. We started recently using the body cams where officers will have the camera on their uniform and they can tape interactions so that they will have that footage. And even then, a police officer doesn't have, he has the device that he doesn't have access to delete, to alter, to change anything. It goes into a system and only the authorized people that has access can access that.
But that's the officers have the opportunity when they're going to behave immorally to turn off those cameras.
There's always a possibility to misuse any process that is in place.
Just for the record. Thank you.
I do wish, though, and I know you are critical of law enforcement, Councilman Van Putten, but I want to say two things here. Today, because I know the challenges that law enforcement faces on our island, but at the end of the day, those are the men and women that are supposed to keep us safe. And as a community, I call on our community to give the necessary support and collaboration. At the end of the day, when anything happens on this island, we can't call New York, we can't call Paris, we can't call Belgium, we can't call the island next door. It's the same law enforcement officers that we have here who go through challenges every day. Those are the same men and women in blue who need to come to our rescue. So let us give them the support and the respect. And of course, yes, they are human, and yes, they can err from time to time, but I don't think we should write them off as not being a functioning. I think today, the Chief Basic Police Care has exposed a lot of vulnerabilities, and sometimes you may ask, should we have this conversation even in public? But it's also transparency. It's also that the public knows what we're up against. So that is my final conclusion on this topic today.
Mr. Van Putten.
Mr. Chairman, I think in wrapping up, I said I would support the ordinance when it comes before the General Assembly of the Legislature on Thursday, I think it is. But I think in response to what the Honorable Governor stated, I support the men in blue and blue and white, the police officers. I do, and they know I do. But I'm very critical. That was just a side joke
Okay, good.
with turning off the camera, and I know we'll get a response from a particular police officer. But I support them, and if they're wrong, I will call them out publicly, because I'm not in this business of going in close-up room and talking things. And like I said before, cooperation and respect come from both sides. You're very right when you said through thick and thin, they are there to protect, preserve, and defend the citizens and residents of the island. And so it is incumbent, and again from this platform, especially with the holidays coming up, and with the police commissioner present, I want to call on all our people, but particularly the young people, because sometimes they are the ones that become more hype and at times could be erratic. And I'm not saying that older people are not doing the same, but I want to call on them to publicly, especially during this summer festival season, to exercise restraint and to cooperate and to conduct themselves accordingly. They gave me an invitation to go to the Carnival Village. I'm not sure if I'll honor it yet, because I haven't been going there for years. When I was commissioner, I went and I crowned the queens and kings, but I haven't gone back since, and it's quite some time. But I really hope that our people would cooperate with the police, and the police in turn would cooperate with them, so that it can be safe for them as citizens and residents, but also for those individuals who would come from elsewhere, to celebrate the summer festival here in this country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Van Putten. Well, that concludes our deliberation on this agenda point. So we want to thank the governor and Ms. Francis and the Inspector Hodge and the other members of our team for sharing the information with us. So I take it from the committee that they have sufficient information regarding this agenda point and that it can move to the Island Council meeting on July 10th, on Thursday. Yeah. All right, thank you. That concludes agenda point number 4. Agenda point number 5 is announcements from the Executive Council. Are there any such announcements? No. Then we move to agenda point number 6, closing. So this extra meeting of the Central Committee for today, Monday, July 7, is now concluded. I want to thank all the committee members, the governor and her staff, and also those listening to us via various media. Thanks again. This meeting is adjourned.